Hey, everybody. Thanks for subscribing. Or if you're not subscribed, you just happen to find me, please hit that subscribe button and tell your friends. Um, the things about Trump are getting increasingly disturbing. He and Elon Musk are flouting the rule of law. They know they are doing so. They are testing the limits, or maybe they already think that the limits have been tested. They can do whatever they want. This is reminding me a lot what they're doing with Elon Musk going to Wisconsin and giving away two $1 million checks to people if they voted in the state Supreme Court election. This is against the law. It is illegal to pay people to vote. They couldn't even come into the hall unless they'd voted. And of course, they were voting for his choice. So this is what he's doing to cheat in our elections, and he is openly doing illegal things, knowing that Trump's DOJ will do nothing, that Trump's MAGA Congress will do nothing. They won't hold hearings. They just simply will do nothing. So they're not just pushing the limits of the law. They did that in Trump's first administration. They're openly breaking it. They know they're doing it. Trump, again, talking about running for a third term, even though it's unconstitutional. And there is no way that he would be able to get 75% of our state legislatures to repeal the 22nd Amendment. So he's planning on doing it either with violence, breaking the law, the way that Putin does. And he seems real confident. Now we have Republican Congressman from Montana, Ryan Zinke, on television saying, no, he believes in the Constitution. He will not support that. By the way, Zinke was Trump's Secretary of the Interior in Trump's first administration. So this is a former Trump cabinet member saying, no, I will not support that. Trump doesn't seem to care. And that is what is concerning, that he would run for a third term. Or as he said, really, it's a fourth term, because he says he really won in 2020, which of course he didn't. I don't think he's ever really won. He's cheated every time. It's just the cheating didn't work in 2020 because of the pandemic. And there were all those mailed in paper ballots, and that was harder for them to cheat with. And that's why Louis DeJoy was pulling mailboxes out of heavily Democratic neighborhoods and destroying $2 million per machine of mail sorting machines right before the election to try and ensure that votes for Biden could not be counted. So they cheat, and that's a given. And I think most of MAGA understand that Trump cheats. They know he's a liar and a con man, but they think they're in on the con. And they're starting to get angry if they are the ones that are losing their federal jobs, if the price of their eggs haven't gone down. Well, I don't think that Trump cares if they're angry. He just doesn't. Elon Musk only cares what other people think, to the degree that they are trashing the reputation and the stock of Tesla, and in some cases vandalizing the cars. So he got Trump to say that that's domestic terrorism, which of course it is not. They don't seem to care about the rule of law at all. And that is concerning. So we've been talking about this, and we sort of tiptoe around the fact that Trump's going for a third term. It's going to take more Republicans stepping up. As we've talked about in recent days, the Republican chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee was demanding an expedited IG investigation into the signal chat, the illegal, treasonous, stupid signal chat between our highest defense and national security people who knew they were breaking the law, who knew they weren't supposed to be doing that, and they did it anyway. Okay. And by the way, it is Project 2025 instructs operatives to do that, to do Signal and other similar apps so that they can avoid prosecution, indictment, and hide what they're doing. So again, these are people who do not care about the rule of law. And some MAGA don't care about the rule of law as long as it still benefits them. You probably have friends like this, in your life, or former friends or family or colleagues. As long as it's their team winning and cheating, they're okay with it, until they're the ones that become the victims of this. I'm looking at this almost as if the Republicans in Congress, the very few who have had the courage to speak out against what Trump is doing, it reminds me of Democrats in Trump's first administration. Stay with me on this. When Nancy Pelosi decided not to impeach Trump, over those 10 or 11 counts of instances of obstruction of justice in the Mueller report, even though Special Counsel Robert Mueller testified that he wasn't going to indict Trump, not because legally he couldn't, but because of that OLC memo. It was a memo policy saying you don't indict a sitting president. But Mueller said, but yeah, he answered a question from a Republican member of Congress. This was on TV. We all watched it at the hearing. And he's under oath. He says, yes, president can be indicted once he leaves office. And of course, the only reason Trump ran for president again was to stay out of prison because he saw that Merrick Garland was dragging his feet and probably would never do anything. Trump knows when he's got someone by the short hairs. He knows when people are afraid of him. So Nancy Pelosi whiffed, and then he knew that the sky's the limit. He could break through every guardrail. She blinked. Democrats blinked. And so it was up to Democrats to stand up to him. But we heard them all say or intimate more or less that, well, we think he's learned his lesson, or he won't do that. Kind of like how Senator Susan Collins was saying that, and was saying it about Kavanaugh, saying it about Trump. He learned his lesson. No. And that is weak sauce to even say that. It's also a cop-out. And no, she didn't believe it. If you don't stand up to them 100%, you can't just do a little bit, and think it's going to take care of it. Well, he'll get the message because next time we're serious. That doesn't work with criminals, traitors, lifelong con men, and mobsters. And Trump is a mobster. And I'm fairly certain that there's been some interesting circumstances surrounding deaths of people that got in his way. Very Putin-esque. So at this point in time, Trump is barreling through. He's already barreled through all the guardrails. And Democrats kind of can't do anything now. When Democrats could do more, I'm sorry, but they decided not to. Okay. The January 6th committee was even thinking of not referring people to Department of Justice for indictment on certain things when they were being lied to, or, they weren't showing up for a testimony when they were invited to or ordered to. If you don't impose, if you don't enforce the rule of law and the norms, and Trump and Trumpers break those laws and you do nothing about it, you're just inviting more lawlessness. So at this point in time, Democrats have no cards. Now, we can do protests, and I think those do matter, but in terms of the real close-in front lines of fighting this stuff, it's going to take Republicans. We're seeing a few. It's not going to be a lot. But it's interesting because I feel like Republicans in Congress now are in the position that Democrats were in when Trump was president the first time, and Democrats had, at least a majority in the House. So will they or won't they? How will they come down on this? Now, we've talked before about, will they be more afraid of their constituents and their voters than they are of Trump? That can happen, but we're the ones that have to make that happen. Remember, next weekend, April 5th, we all have those protests. I'm going to my local one. So look up your local one and go. We have to keep the pressure on. That's all we have. Our media has let us down. I can't even look at Morning Joe and Mika anymore. I won't watch them after what they've done. We do tend to embrace people that we shouldn't. We think they learned their lesson. People who were for Trump and then against Trump and then for Trump, and if they have clever tweets, we think that's great. We should have higher standards than that. So now I'm looking at Republicans. There has been some movement on this. Some Republicans are willing to defy Trump on certain things. Will defying the Constitution and the 22nd Amendment be one of those things? Will going to war and invading Greenland and putting our men and women's lives at risk and dying, MAGA going to send their sons and daughters to war for Greenland because Putin wants it and Elon Musk wants it? This was not something Trump ran on in the campaign. So he wants to see just how blindly loyal the cult is, where they draw the line. And at this point, it will have to be MAGA. It will have to be Republicans anyway. Maybe they're not really MAGA. Republicans in Congress and otherwise are in other places are going to have to be the ones to say, they're not going to say, well, we think he learned his lesson. So yeah, I'm admitting Democrats whiffed on this. Democrats were weak. They did not want to do the hard work. They didn't want to take the chance. They thought, I do remember Nancy Pelosi saying, oh, he's not worth it. We'll let the voters take care of it. Well, he was president and he was breaking the law. And that makes him worth it. And it was her job to make sure that he was impeached, even if the Senate didn't go along with it. But I think they may have at that early stage in the Mueller report. You can't say, well, he's learned his lesson. You have to do the job. Well, now that Democrats are no longer in charge, they still have to make motions for votes in the committees for some of these people to be referred to DOJ for indictment, who lied under oath, like Tulsi Gabbard and Ratcliffe, pretty much all of Trump's top security team. Nothing will happen, but we do have to create that record of them being even more lawless, of Pam Bondi not doing her job to the point of probably committing treason. We have to keep this record in case we ever get rid of these people. But here's the thing. Trump and Elon Musk, I think, both understand that they have to go all in. And that's really dangerous. Think of what all in means for Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Look at what's happened just in 2 months. Think what it means in 2 years or a year from now, where we're going to be. I think we're all still kind of hoping they'll stop. They'll get the message. They'll stop. Well, they won't. Unfortunately, it's going to take Republicans to stand up to them. And Republicans won't do it unless they're more afraid of us than they are of Trump and Elon. Or maybe some of them could maybe sort of kind of be patriots and care more about the Constitution than about making Trump a king. Trump has no loyalty. He will throw these people under the bus and even in prison in the blink of an eye. Look what he just did to Elise Stefanik. My concern is that they maybe don't have it perfected yet, where they can fully cheat in some of these races, some of the special elections, and the state Supreme Court race in Wisconsin, or the openly cheating. They want to see how much they can get away with. They want to see, at this point, I don't think they're even looking to see how much they can get away with Democrats. They already know. I think it's a test for Republicans. And that is a little bit frightening. Actually, it's a lot frightening. So that's why I think it's great that people like Governor Tim Walz is going into some of these Republican congressional districts and having rallies. I think Eric Swalwell is doing it. We have to go all in and do what we can as Democrats. There's very little we can do. But focusing on the Republicans, who are now the ones on the front lines, I think a lot of them, the ones that are still in Congress, I think a lot of them were wishing that Nancy Pelosi had Trump impeached after he lied in the Mueller report, after the obstruction of justice. I think that they were too afraid to stand up and defend our country and defend our Constitution and defend the rule of law. And I think they were really, really hoping that the Democrats would do it. I think many of them were relieved that Trump lost in 2020. Remember how quickly so many of them, including Mitch McConnell, stepped forward, eager to step forward, and made public statements about Trump and January 6th. Remember, he had already lost the election. They knew he lost the election. And they were pinning the January 6th treasonous insurrection, where Trump had his goons storm the Capitol, tried to kill Mike Pence, tried to kill Nancy Pelosi, did kill some people, cops. Remember those pipe bombs? This was all planned by Trump goons. And they all, they were convicted, went to prison. He pardoned them. But I think many, many Republicans in Congress thought, that's it. We buried him. We don't have to deal with that jerk anymore. He is an albatross around their necks. Well, now, since then, more and more, it kind of gets layered over with each election. More and more actual true MAGA get elected rather than the establishment before that weren't really MAGA, but they were too afraid and they had to put up with it. I think they thought Trump was a temporary aberration. Well, he's for real. Republicans now are the ones really on the front lines, and I know I don't want to be too hopeful, but as you know, in this space, I do like to track when Republicans show a spine. And so right now is Trump's former Secretary of Interior, Republican Congressman Ryan Zinke from Montana, who is saying absolutely not, that he supports the Constitution, and the Constitution says Trump cannot run for another term. The only way is to have the 22nd Amendment repealed. That is a process that Trump can't win. So clearly, he's not going to bother with it. He said he's not going to bother with it. Steve Bannon has said they're not going to bother with it. So they have some other plan. And that's frightening. And it's going to have to be Republicans that stand up to him.